Okay, let's say you are in the middle of your project and you realize you have made a mistake. In this case, I was working on a purl row, and you can tell because these little loops, again, like I showed you before, and then all of a sudden my loops look like they're lower, and I can see that there is this knit stitch, and you need to go backwards without pulling back all of your work. And sometimes, lots of times, you'll make errors where it means you have to start again. And I just want to remind you that that is the best way to learn how to knit. It teaches you muscle memory, it teaches you patience. But in the case that you have a mistake that is fixable, I want to teach you what to do. So you will see, hopefully this is close enough for you, you will see that this loop towards the front is kind of riding through here. And all that means is that this was the loop in the row previous that allowed you to get to this next row, okay? So what you want to do is you want to find that loop that is below the stitch that's on your needle. So it's closest to you and right under there. And you're going to stick your needle in that loop and then push the yarn off the needle. And what that does is it allows you to go back a stitch. So I'm gonna do this again. So I'm looking for, you'll see this loop, right? That's tempting to grab, except that that's actually 2 rows back. So you want to move it out of the way and find the loop of yarn that is closest to the needle under the current stitch you have. And you're gonna slip it onto your needle and then push it off and sort of pull that away. And what that does is it allows you to go back. So now, as an example here, I've got one more knit stitch, and I can tell I have a knit stitch. When you get close like this, sometimes it can be hard to tell. The way you know what your last stitch was is dependent on how your yarn is currently placed on the needle. So as an example, my yarn at the moment is very happily just hanging out at the back. That means that the last stitch that I did was a knit stitch. Whereas if I were to remove that and show you, now you can see that the yarn, so it's sitting towards the back, but you can see that it's trying to come to the front. That means that this last stitch, that was a purl stitch. So if you're like, I can't quite tell the difference between the bumps and the little triangles or diamonds, whatever we want to call them, if you're like, I can't quite tell the difference, then just pay attention to how your yarn is sitting. If it's sitting comfortably in the front, you've just done a purl stitch. If it sits comfortably in the back, then you've just done a knit stitch. And you'll know, because you'll just pick it up and be like, oh, it wants to go to the front. So now, let's say your mistake was a purl stitch. Now you can see this loop. Again, it's closest to the needle, right? So this is the stitch that's on the needle, and this is the one that's closest to it and holding it. So you just slip your needle right underneath and push that off, and then you're just pulling the yarn away, and now you're back to the knit on the needle, or the stitch on the needle. However, there is one piece to taking a purl stitch off that is different than taking a knit stitch off. And that is that the purl stitch actually then needs to come back off and be twisted, so that you have these loops that are happening again right here. If I left it off the way that it was, now my stitch is twisted. So I have this reverse purl, which won't, it wouldn't totally be noticeable unless you had to undo an entire row, then it would be quite noticeable. So again, my yarn is hanging out in the front. That means that this last stitch was also a purl stitch. And then you would just proceed to carry on. So if this row was meant to be a purl row, then I would just pick back up on purling, and I would know that I've done purl stitches again because my yarn is just hanging out in front very happily.